And welcome into the Monday edition, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. Hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. Joe Rexrode, fresh off covering the Army-Navy game. How we doing? What's going on? Happy Monday morning to you.
Doing okay. Yeah, Army Navy was great, and then the NFL yesterday was, well, guys, depended on the city you were in. But you know what? Let me just say this about the Tennessee Titans. We've been asking them, if you're going to lose these games, can we have something more like 33-23 than 13-10? So progress. How about that?
They delivered yesterday.
That's right.
There's no doubt about that. Keyser, how we doing? What's going on?
Morning. Yeah, doing well, guys. Glad to be closer to Christmas and should have a few fun things in store in Nashville this week.
We should, no doubt about it. Let's begin on the Titans. Let's get right into it. They lose 37-27 yesterday, Joe, in a score that's a little deceiving. They did score on the last play of the game. Shout out to Josh Wiley for that nice touchdown he had on the last play of the game there. Titans turned the ball over 6 times, including 4 from Will Levis, 3 interceptions, 1 lost fumble. Tony Pollard fumbles the ball. Mason Rudolph also comes in and throws an interception, but he did throw for 2 touchdowns and went 21 of 26 for 209 yards. So that part of it's fun, I guess. Tavondre Sweat had the highlight of the season for the Titans yesterday, picking up a fumble and giving the greatest stiff arm we've seen since Derrick Henry threw Josh Norman into the crowd. And other than that, Joe, the Titans dropped to 3-11. They gave up 37 points to the Bengals. Joe Burrow was yelling at his coach on the sideline, and even in a winning effort. Some fun stuff yesterday at Nissan Stadium. Good stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the Burrow thing. Any idea what that's about?
He said he was frustrated with the offense. He turned the ball over twice. There were too many procedural penalties. So even though it was a nice shot of him about to wrap up a nice win at Nissan Stadium, very upset with the way the offense performed yesterday in Tennessee, apparently.
Yeah, it was just a strange time for that too. I mean, the game's over, right? I mean, it's like it's a wrap. I thought for a minute it was like because I really don't think Zach Taylor wanted them to score that last TD. I think he wanted to bleed the clock, if it would have worked out or get close to it. And then I was like, I wonder if but all they did was hand off.
Yeah.
It's not like Burrow did anything to make it. That's interesting. It's always, it's already an embattled season for Zach Taylor. So even when he wins games, he has to have his QB screaming at him just to make sure people can still stay mad at him,
Good times for him.
Yeah. Good times for that, those buddies, who were coaching against each other yesterday. I mean, obviously still much better times for one than the other, but just obviously ugly. I mean, the story, which it has been more than not, more good than bad, some good, some bad, is Levis and just what this means. And I didn't think that Brian Callahan was going to, post game try to explain that. This is going to be a super interesting week. It might be a week that we find out that that's it. Because to me, I mean, these 3 games left. I mean, if you're not going back to them, then how are you going back to them at all after that?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Will Levis is benched yesterday. He throws 3 interceptions, including another pick 6, which I believe, Joe, is his 4th pick 6 of the season, which leads the NFL. He also had the turnover on the fumble as well. And it's just brutal yesterday from Levis. He ends up 8 of 12, 89 yards, the 3 picks, a quarterback rating of 49. And it just felt like it just snowballed on him. The one mistake after the other, the turnovers, the decisions, throwing the ball across the middle of the field that led to the pick 6 where you're just incredibly late on the decision. And it just felt like yesterday it totally snowballed out of control for him. And he ends up getting benched. Rudolph comes in, Nissan Stadium. The Titans fans that were there, which weren't very many, but the Titans fans that were there, go nuts as Rudolph comes in. Callahan, after the game, asked about the decision to bench Will Levis. Starts talking about how there's too many negatives with Will. right now, and did not really commit to him or anything at the quarterback position moving forward, which has been the first time that's happened. So yesterday kind of feels like, Joe, like was that the line of demarcation for Brian Callahan and Will Levis? I don't know. Like you said, it's going to be a really interesting week to see what Brian Callahan has to say on that front. But, all the progress that it seemed like Levis was making those 4 weeks, you're talking about now a game against Jacksonville last week where you're missing reads and throws that you can't miss, and you put up 6 points against one of the worst defenses in the league. And now today we're talking about in the aftermath of a performance against another one of the worst defenses in the league. I think they had scored 14 points with Levis in there. Both of them came on the first 2 drives, and then you turn the ball over 6 times as an offense. It's just inexcusable, with 4 of those being from Levis.
Yeah, really ugly. It's like, you got like the first one is just I still am not totally sure which of those 2 receivers he was throwing to, but obviously it just sailed on him and it was an ill-advised throw. The second one it's a fine idea, but your decision making you can work on, and I think he has. But then, not to say he's worked on it enough or that he's where he needs to be there, but like you can keep working on that. I watched Josh Allen yesterday absolutely make the Detroit Lions look like an FCS defense, and he is that guy who early on it was like, this guy can't throw, and now I think he's going to win MVP this year, and he should. And you know what? That's great. He's the only example that I really have of someone who, like, early in the league, not that there aren't quarterbacks who don't make it, who struggle early, but like who early on look like I'll compare it to a jump shot, look like they have this jacked up jumper, and then all of a sudden look like Steph Curry in 3 years. And it's just this smooth, perfect form. And it's hitting, every time. It just doesn't happen. Like, Josh Allen is the only one I really know. And I just think that's not all of his troubles. He's got plenty of them right now, but that is the thing that I keep coming back to, where it's like, that was to me the big question, and it continues to be. I know a lot of people would say, no, the big question was the death picks and all that stuff, and that's fair too. But I think some of those are also related just to the mechanical inconsistency.
Well, and it's so discouraging from the Levis standpoint in terms of, you felt like you were starting to make some progress there. It's not like those 4 games were perfect after he came back off of the shoulder injury, right? I mean, look, we talked about the Houston game a lot. The offense played well. I thought Brian Callahan called an outstanding game against Houston, and Levis still threw a pick 6 and got sacked 8 times in that game, and they found a way to win. So it's never been anywhere near perfect along this entire ride here. It's been such just another huge regression the last 2 weeks, right? And it makes you wonder, kind of similar to the conversation I was having about earlier this year, Joe. Like, yeah, we keep talking so much last year about the Atlanta game and his debut and the Miami comeback. And it's like, are those more so the outliers in his career than they are kind of the norm? Now you watch what he's done the last 2 weeks against Jacksonville and now against Cincinnati. And, the week before, it's hard to put much of that on him with Washington. It was a total team failure the week before that. But the last 2 weeks, he's been bad. Like, he's a bad quarterback the last 2 weeks. And I do, like, with the way that Callahan answered some of those questions yesterday, Joe, I do wonder if he's seen enough at this point.
Yeah. Well, and then you get into the bigger picture too. So, which we've been talking about, which is his future, Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker's future, all that stuff. And, while certainly it doesn't like help Carthon to be like, well, the quarterback just screwed it up. Okay. That's certainly, and I'm not saying anybody's going to go out of their way to like throw Levis under the bus, like send an Amy text like, hey, it's all Will's fault. You know that, right? Not saying that, but it's like this sort of, I guess, distancing yourself in terms of, if you do make this move, that's what you're saying. You're saying that for the rest of the year, I mean, obviously, like, you're 3-11.
Yeah.
I mean, the only reason to win, you want to win in this league. Everybody does all the time. But the reason to win right now is, I mean, like it's self-preservation, right? I mean, in terms of those folks. So, like, to me, if I was a Titans fan, I might be like, you know what, you guys better play Levis, because even though no one's tanking, you can quote unquote tank with personnel decisions, right? So that's your best bet to get your best draft pick. But benching him is also sort of saying, see, it's his fault. And that's really, if that issue gets fixed, then things can get better. I mean, that's sort of what you are saying.
So the Titans lose again. That is not the storyline from yesterday. They're 3-11. They've done a lot of losing, frankly, so far this year, and probably have some more losing yet to do as they move forward. However, will Levis be the quarterback when they do it? Levis benched yesterday against the Bengals. Does that signal that his time as starting quarterback has come to a close? Does it signal that the Titans are moving on after this year? Are they going back this week against Indianapolis to Levis and giving him another chance? We'll take your thoughts on all that. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, The Game.
in the past about not wanting to be reactionary with benchings. What made this specific situation something where you felt like it needed to happen?
Just needed some momentum. We needed something to spark us a bit. And, we had 3 turnovers, again, in a really tight amount of time. And that gave them some points. And, they had another one we got a little bit lucky on, at the ball didn't go back the other way for 6 points again. So just felt like we needed something. And again, not everything's on the quarterback, but he's the one that's going to take the most heat when those decisions happen. And so felt like we just needed something to spark us out of that part. We played really well early, and then the turnovers in succession there really put us in a tough spot. And in a game where I thought it was going to be tight at halftime, it ended up not being that way because we gave them opportunities that that they shouldn't have had. And again, sometimes those things happen. I've been a part of those before, where just a bad series that just kind of spiraled on them, and you need to take a seat for a little bit and let somebody else do it.
That's Brian Callahan after the game yesterday. Titans lose 37-27 to Cincinnati. Will Levis, 8 of 12 for 89 yards, 3 interceptions, another pick 6, a lost fumble, and ultimately a benching against the Cincinnati Bengals. What does it all mean for him moving forward? Was yesterday the final straw for him as Titans starting quarterback? Taking your thoughts on that. 615-737-1025. Our phone number, 615-737-1025. What did you make of Callahan's explanation there, Joe, and kind of the tone that he had after the game as it related to Will Levis?
Yeah, I mean, again, as usual, it's like a calm, measured explanation. Makes sense. I get it. Again, his job is trying to win football games. At that point, I think a lot of coaches, regardless of whatever the situation is, other than coaches who have like a great quarterback as a starter, and that's just not ever the answer. You don't really have an alternative. I mean, that's a totally reasonable thing to do, to make that switch. Obviously, it's just in this situation, this is the find out about Will Levis year. It wasn't that long ago. Like, look at his improvement. Okay, look at that improvement. Maybe he's got something, and now this. So I think the explanation made sense. I think it's just it's going to be very interesting to see what he says today.
Yeah.
I mean, is he going to commit one way or another and say, yeah, Will's the guy, or we're going to go with Mason, or is he going to play, just push it, kick the can down the road publicly all week and make people guess? I mean, I have no idea. I'm very interested to know. Obviously, to me, if he does either of the second two, then I would expect that Levis is done.
Yeah, I mean, I would expect, it's tough, Joe, because I still, I realize Rudolph came in there yesterday and the numbers are good, right? Like, they're 21 of 26, 209, 2 touchdowns. He also had an interception as well. But, my opinion on watching Mason Rudolph play football hasn't really changed, Joe. I don't really have a whole lot of interest in watching the Mason Rudolph-led Titans close out the season here. Now, again, I'm not the one whose job's on the line, so, it's not my decision to make at this point. But, I do wonder, if you're a Titans fan, you're 3-11. We heard from a lot of people when we've talked about the quarterback over the last couple of weeks. And some of it was, you know what? We've seen enough since he's come back from injury to warrant bringing him back next year and for him to be the starting quarterback. We had this conversation 3 days ago, Joe, about what to do with quarterback moving forward. And the majority of the people, and I think a lot of this probably has to do with not loving the options elsewhere at quarterback that are out there. But the majority of people that we heard from just the other day wanted Will Levis back as the quarterback next year. That's probably, like I said, a nice combination of, looking at the draft and saying, yep, I'm not a huge fan of quarterbacks in the draft that we feel like you can realistically get. And then the same thing with free agency. What about today? How much does that answer change today in the aftermath of just a performance that just went totally sideways? I mean, you heard it there from Callahan in that clip. I mean, it wasn't just that the turnovers were coming. It was just right in a row, turnover after turnover after turnover. And you look up at the scoreboard and you're just out of it at that point. So, I'll be really interested to hear throughout the show today what Titans fans, how Titans fans kind of view this moving forward.
Yeah, I would say, based on the text line here, driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, that There's definitely, yeah, it's kind of flipped the other way. But what also happens, Robbie, is that like if you're on one side or the other, if it's going the other way, you stay quiet. And when it's going like the way you believe, then that's when you pipe in more,
Yep.
right? I mean, we have some regulars who are always piping in, but here's one that's, I don't know. Texture says, unnamed Texture, I don't know why anyone's surprised if you watch him play as I did at both Penn State and Kentucky. This is who he is. Physical talent, poor decision making. He's the poster child for a huge problem at every level of the sport. We get enamored by how someone looks in shorts and spend way too little time watching them play the game of football. I'm going to argue against that. He made some mistakes and he had picks and things like that. He also had like 330-yard, 3-touchdown, no interception games playing the game of football at a high level, at the highest level of college football. I mean, this isn't, just, wow, look at him run and throw. I mean, he has played well. He's played well in the NFL, but consistently playing well in the NFL, I think that's more and more sounding like a pipe dream, at least at this stage of his career.
Well, and to that point, Joe, like yesterday, was game 19 for him? I think it was. So you're talking about 19 games. You felt like he was making some progress prior to the Jacksonville game coming back for the injury. And the question we keep tossing out there was, well, that's great that he's making progress. The starting point this year was so rough that how do you determine exactly where he is? Well, I mean, you're now 20 games into his career, and to revert back to a performance like that again yesterday. And again, this is the other thing to keep in mind, against a defense that's horrible. I mean, the numbers have been horrible for Cincinnati all year long. So this is not like they were playing the 85 Bears yesterday. So you have to factor that in. It's back-to-back performances, with yesterday's being an unmitigated disaster against just awful defenses. And that, at this point in his career, you would hope that he's past that at this point, and he's just not.
Right. So there is a lot of sentiment of, which I get, which, like I said, is to the effect of, now, why do I want to watch Mason Rudolph play? I mean, like, okay, so Brian Callahan feels like he needs to win games. Again, their job is to win football games, but we also know the bigger job quest of this season. I think a lot of it is, like you said, Robbie, there was definitely this, reaction to Rudolph going to the game, but I almost take that more as like, yes, sit down, Levis. You know what I mean? Rather than, yay, Mason. And by the way, his pick was atrocious, too.
Yeah, I don't know that the Titans faithful were like, oh, thank God, our savior, Mason Rudolph, is coming in.
Finally, been begging for this guy. More Mason Rudolph, please. But, it's just, I think there is, and I get it, a lot of like, one, I'm a Titans fan. I want to lose now. Please lose. You're in a heck of a race right now. You got what, a couple other 11 loss teams coming into the week. You had 4 other 10 loss teams. Like, it is a battle, so I totally get that. But to me, it's just like, again, if you do make this move, then I think the very most that you're doing with him next year, but he may, be under contract. You don't move him. He's basically like the backup, right? To back up to who? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But it's hard. I think if you bench him, I think it's hard to come back from that. And again, even like with his confidence, which obviously seems to be wobbling again here.
Well, if you bench him, like, it's one thing to bench him in a game, right? Like, so they bench him in the middle of the game with the turnovers. If that now leads to a benching the rest of the year, then I have no idea. I mean, you can't come back with it. Like, you got to go get another quarterback next year. And look, I said it Friday. I stand by it. Like, you need to look long and hard at quarterback, regardless of what your opinion is on Levis at the end of this year. At this point, based on the way that things have gone, like, you need to operate assuming that this front office and coaching staff remain in place, which may be a huge assumption, which we'll get into here in just a few minutes. But assuming that they are, like, you need to operate under the assumption that you're taking a quarterback. And then if it doesn't work out that way, it doesn't work out that way. But you've got to dig into that. I think even if Levis hadn't done what he did yesterday and finished out the season, that should be your approach if you're the Titans. Well, now, like, if you're benching him and you're not going back to him the rest of the year, and we'll see if that's what they decide to do. But if it is, Joe, well, then you got to find a quarterback somewhere, because it's not going to be him. next year if that's what is the course of action Brian Callahan takes here.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, even through these improvements in the last few weeks, like I think that had to be the mindset, and we talked about that.
Yeah,
but also, I mean, I think, I mean, beyond just like be prepared or be all up on your P's and Q's. I think there's got to be a little bit more discussion, right, about like, okay, what can be a realistic answer, and then you get into what can we do to get a veteran who could actually come in right now and win games, or if you're doing the QB of the future thing, then that's what, like, Wes, well, I think from Clarksville, I don't know, this text line is actually blowing up and too fast for me, but yeah, Wes in Clarksville said it's depressing because now you kind of know you have to address that, and how bad the rest of the team is, right?
Yeah,
like, because that's the thing. The hope is, well, okay, good enough at least for another year, so fix the right tackle, fix whatever else. You have plenty of things to do. If you're doing this, okay, great. How about you don't fix it? It's still bad around the QB, and now you have a rookie QB. You can't win with him either. When will there be wins?
Curtis on YouTube says the entire second half I was on my phone looking for draft prospect highlights. That's where we've gotten to with Curtis on the YouTube chat. Probably not alone there. 615-737-1025, our phone number. We'll have more of your reaction. Titans lose 37-27. Will Levis gets benched yesterday against Cincinnati. Is that the end of the road for him as Titans quarterback? We'll get more into that. Robby and Rexrode, 1025-1063, the game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Taking your thoughts on our phone and text lines, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. It is a part of our 12 Days of Christmas here, brought to you by Moments Peace Salon and Day Spa. We got a $100 gift card to give away for a Moments Peace, located at 9050 Carruthers Parkway in Franklin. Be caller number 5, 615-737-1025. You'll also be qualified to win the grand prize of a $1,000 Genesis Diamonds gift card as well. So give us a call, 615-737-1025. Caller 5, a $100 gift card for a Moments Peace Salon and Day Spa. Paul Kuharski will be with us later in the program at 7:30. We'll get his thoughts on the debacle for Will Levis yesterday and another loss for the Titans. Cory Curtis will be with us at 8 o'clock as well. Joe Laverne on the YouTube chat says, we all just want this season to end, but if anyone thinks one draft and free agency is going to fix this broken team, you are mistaken. And that goes back to what you brought up. In a perfect world, you'd like to have Levis and the quarterback position figured out for at least next year to start to address some of the other problem areas on this team that remain huge problem areas. And then the quarterback goes out and has a performance like that yesterday, Joe, and you walk away from the game thinking to yourself, well, how do you possibly bring this guy back as quarterback next year? How do you possibly toss him back out there and go with that as your plan if you're the Titans? And look, it's one game. You don't want to overreact to one game, but it really isn't one game. Like, it's the totality of the picture of the season so far, Joe. And, you know, there's a 4-game stretch where he started to turn things around and play a little better. But, like, you can't tell me that right now, you look at the totality of the picture for Levis this year at quarterback. I mean, it's unbelievably underwhelming on the whole.
Yeah, it's not good. And it's not, again, at some point it just comes down to, can you win with this guy? There's some people saying, what, are we just going to ignore J.C. Latham and how he's playing to the offensive line? And I get it. Again, there are other things to fix other than quarterback, but no, I mean, look, at this point, it's way more bad than good, and I'm here for the idea of Levis at some point getting a shot somewhere and having that revival or whatever. But I think he's headed toward being a backup in the NFL, and like a lot of these guys, he's going to go into the Mac Jones plan, and I just think that's where it's headed. It's hard at this point to expect otherwise. And again, I was like, if you're the Titans, how could you have confidence? Let's say you did, go with again, you could draft and it could be early on. It could be, well, hey, let's just have a legit competition. You could draft. And then, maybe Levis in year 3 is in this offense is way ahead of that rookie. And that's fine, and maybe he plays well. But how can you really have confidence that you can win with him at this point? It's hard to get there in my mind at this point.
Well, let me ask you this. Like, was yesterday, let's say Joe Rexrode is the decision maker for the Tennessee Titans, which I think really deep down is what we've all wanted the whole time, is Rexrode to be in charge.
Not the text line right now, but yeah, keep going.
Was yesterday, was that enough for you? Like, was yesterday your line of demarcation on the Will Levis conversation?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, and look, I think you go back before the 4-game thing, and I said, it doesn't look good. I mean, if you make me make a decision, right now I'm looking for an alternative. Yeah, but I might have said that before yesterday. Yesterday, you know what I mean? Like yesterday kind of hammers it home. I think you've got to look for another alternative. Again, the best case for him probably would be that situation I just said. They actually get into a draft high enough to get a quarterback they want. I mean, who knows? I mean, they could love Milroe and get him in the second round. I mean, I don't know, but they draft a QB who they hope is the future, and Levis is the veteran who, placeholder starter, / designated backup as soon as the kid is ready. I mean, if you're Levis right now, would you take that? I think I would take that over just, you're out of here, and you're sitting, or I'd take that over. Yeah, the Titans are going to go make a huge push for, whoever. I mean, that's the problem too, right? Is tell me who you're excited about, unless you can pull off a trade for a veteran. who are you excited about on the market. But I mean, I think that's probably his best case scenario. And if I'm the Titans, I couldn't right now be confident in anything more than that.
Well, and then there's, the conversations with this team inevitably, Joe, always end up back to the owner. Like if you're Amy Adams Strunk, you're coming off an off season where, part of the little song and dance you threw out there after you fired Mike Vrabel was we've got an exciting young quarterback that we're going to build this thing around. And you hired a coach that you hoped would come in and continue to mold the quarterback. And the simple answer is starting to look more and more like he's just not good enough. Like the quarterback is just not good enough. And you're going to have to restart and go find another quarterback, be that a veteran, be that somebody in the draft. So like how does that influence what Amy Adams Strunk thinks and what she decides to do here? Because on the one hand, Joe, the answer might just be as simple as Levis isn't good enough. And if I had to like just break it down for you, that's where I'm going. Like, well, he's just not very good. But also, like, you did bring in Brian Callahan to work with the quarterback and to help make some progress and to mold him into whatever the best version of Will Levis is. You hope that Brian Callahan would bring it out of him. And he hasn't done it. Like, this is not better than it was last year. There's been some moments where it's been okay, but the whole picture is bad when it comes to the way that he's played. So how does that influence your confidence level of, all right, it's been this bad with the quarterback. We're starting to really drift into, well, you got to find another answer at quarterback at some point next year. And it goes back to, are these the people in charge that you trust to make that decision? Because, Joe, if it doesn't work and they go select the wrong quarterback, well, then you're changing the regime next year, maybe the coaching staff next year, and then bringing in other people who didn't select the quarterback that you're now working with at that point. This is a huge moment. If you're going to go this way and you're going to change quarterbacks for either the rest of this season, certainly heading into next year, it's a pivotal moment in the franchise. And you better be darn sure if you're A.B. Adams Strunk that these are the right people to make the call.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's boy, it's probably, I guess, if you're her going into the season, if you thought about a worst case scenario where obviously losing like this, being embarrassing, being an embarrassment, having not many people in your stadium and a whole bunch of them are fans of the visiting team, and then having to wonder, does my front office have a clue? Does my coaching staff have a clue? And the young quarterback appears to not really have it. And then it's like, so who do you blame? Who do you keep? Who do you get rid of? Do you get rid of just everybody and completely like new front office, new coach? You guys figure out your new quarterback. And by the way, here comes another season of 5-12, Titans fans.
Yeah.
Get excited. Come on out to Nissan Stadium. I mean, these next few weeks here for Amy Adams Strunk are going to be absolutely critical and very difficult. But I'm sure whenever she schedules a press conference to tell us about it, we'll, we can ask her about that and maybe kind of, help her through it a little bit.
I'm sure. Now, on that front, on the Amy Adams Strunk, Rand Carthon, Brian Callahan front, after a game like yesterday, Joe, and when you get the totality of it, you're 3-11 and you're hurtling quickly towards just an abysmal end of this season. And mercifully, at some point, you get to the end of this regular season, you start to look ahead to the draft and figure out what the future of your organization is going to look like. The calls for change, be that in the front office, be that at the coaching staff, getting louder and louder, including some prominent members of either Titans media or Titans Twitter. We're going to get into some of that from yesterday coming up next. We'll take more of your thoughts on the Titans loss to Cincinnati, 615-737-1025. Will Levis to the bench. Is that it for him as Titans quarterback? A lot more on that coming up as well throughout the program today here on Robby and Rexrode. Tune in to 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville tonight for MTSU men's basketball. The Blue Raiders taking on California Baptist in the WAC Conference USA Challenge at the Murphy Center. Tip-off at 6:30 with the pregame beginning at 6. Coverage also available on the Totally Hits Nashville app and at TotallyHitsNashville.com. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
What did Brian say to you when he pulled you?
It was Bo. I didn't get to talk to Brian. He just told me, turn the ball over 4 times, man. Like, that's what happens. And there was no fight. I just understood it. It sucked. I was there for Mason and the guys, and just tried to be the best teammate I could for the rest of the game.
As Will Levis after the game yesterday on his benching said he was told by Bo Hardigree, Joe, not Brian Callahan, that he was going to the bench. Mason Rudolph was coming in, and the question that we'll attempt to answer throughout the day today, was that the last time we're going to see Will Levis as starting quarterback for the Titans? And even if it's not this year, is he done as starting quarterback for the Titans next year and in the future moving forward? 615-737-1025, our phone number. Now, Joe, I said it yesterday, the calls for change around here getting louder. Not surprising as we get closer to the end of the year and the losing continues. Now you're 3-11. There's been a lot of bad football to watch this year. And they turned the ball over 6 times yesterday, which is not very good. I mean, what did Cincinnati end up with? 4 turnovers? So you're talking about 10 turnovers combined yesterday? Really good football out there at Nissan Stadium. Mike Herndon, friend of the show, Joe, and I think you would agree with this. Mike Herndon, pretty level-headed in his approach when it comes to all things Tennessee Titans. Does a great job at paulkuharski.com. He put this out there yesterday on X. Quote, I don't say this lightly. I'm out on Rand Carthon and this whole Titans regime. This is truly awful football that they're putting on the field right now, and it appears to be getting worse, not better. Nothing we've seen this year or last year for Carthon suggests competence. This is from Mike Herndon. Pretty strong stuff there. What'd you make of those comments from Mike Herndon from paulkuharski.com?
Yeah, well, like you said, Mike is level-headed. I like to think we're also level-headed. I get, is there like a level-headed side of Titans media or Nashville media, and then like a not, I don't know. I think we're kind of similar about a lot of things. And I think when you lose a Mike Herndon to that extent, it probably tells you something, right? And look, I mean, I can't sit here and tell anybody, like the best argument in support of anyone doing their job right now is simply the lack of time to this point, right? Yeah. That's
which is becoming increasingly less and less of a good argument.
Sure. And, again, it's like, then we can get into all the chop everything up with, it's 2 years for part of it, and it's 1 year for this part of it, right, and all that stuff. But no, I mean, I think I can't argue with what he's saying there. It's a bad product, and it just, I mean, I don't want to sit here and say it's a bad culture, which of course we'd love to talk about as much as possible, culture. But it's, I mean, there's some, is it lack of, maybe it's like we talked about in camp, and like the lack of accountability a little bit. Is that an issue? Is it just as simple as like you're just not winning with this team that you're putting on the field? Again, that's where it just gets into the difficulty of figuring out exactly what's the problem and what isn't the problem. Most things seem to be the problem, but everything can't be the problem, right?
I mean,
you want to keep a couple things from this team and move forward. So it's really going to be just interesting here coming up. The decision, or maybe just non-decision, as we sit here once the season ends, it's like you're waiting for something, and then if it doesn't happen, if it happens, then of course it's like, oh, so you're going to just do this and keep doing this. But if it doesn't happen, I think there might be at this point more outrage. And I don't know that I've thought that for most of the year, but I think we might be getting to that tipping point.
Oh yeah, like I think I'm bad at assigning percentages to things, but like, people are mad. Yeah. Like this is yesterday. It's not just isolating yesterday, but yesterday when you turn the ball over 6 times, obviously the ire of most Titans fans is going to the quarterback today. But then you start to look at the whole picture around the quarterback and just what we've seen from this point. And we've gone through the record since they fired John Robinson 1,000 times. By the way, we'll get into this a little bit later this week, but apparently John Robinson interviewing with the New York Jets, so we'll get into that a little bit later this week.
I see that.
But like, I think the word that he brings up, like Herndon brings up in his tweet there, that's really interesting to dissect there. Competence. Like, is there any? Like, have they shown enough in Carthon's situation over the last 2 years and in Brian Callahan's shoes this year's head coach? Has there been enough evidence of confidence or of competence? And let's start on the GM front, Joe. Like right now, it's not just the losing. Like who's playing well for this team? Who of the people that you've brought in are playing good football for you right now? And by the way, I'll throw your most recent first round draft pick into that too. Latham is he's on a 4-week run right now, Joe,
It's
of
ugly.
just bad football. He looks bad out there.
Yeah.
And look, I have hope that he's going to end up being a pretty good left tackle for them moving forward. But it's not a good sign to me that we've reached this point of the season and it feels like he's regressing, not progressing. And there's too much of that feeling going on around here right now. Like I think Herndon laid it out pretty well there. They feel like they're getting worse. Like this 3-week stretch they're on right now of the absolute disaster, the hangover, whatever you want to call it, in Washington, where the game was over 15 minutes into it. You put up 6 points against an atrocious defense in Jacksonville last week and lost that game to a team that is just awful. And then you turned the ball over 6 times yesterday against a Cincinnati defense that hadn't been able to stop anybody all year long. Like it feels like everything about them is getting worse right now, which is not a good spot to be as a selling point for this front office or this coaching staff.
Right, because there really is something to teams that find something late in the year and play well and carry it over. That does happen, and there's just very little to find right now with this team that's positive. So I'm with you. It's almost like that Houston game. You get a little bit of of happiness and support from your owner, and everybody's like, okay, well, we can take the rest of the year off. We got that done. Got Houston beaten Houston, and we got jokes in the text on about still hungover from that. Keith saying the ball, it just isn't bouncing their way. We could go there too. People asking if Will Levis can play hockey. That's also a very fair question. But
good build.
No, it's
physical over the middle.
I mean, yeah, I could. He could probably finish some checks out there. No, it's again, it's like if you are really still watching this, you're a fan of this team and you are watching this team closely still, because you have you have an emotional attachment to this team. Some people can say, yeah, whatever, just go, 30,000 foot view, lose out, get the best pick, figure it out. But if you're watching this team still as a fan, a lot of people are, even if really they'd rather see them lose. You don't want to see this. This is just bad. And it's bad. It's a bad product. And yes, yesterday, it's the quarterback play more than anything. And so when you turn it over like that, other things that go well are going to get lost anyway. But man, what is going well right now?
The list is unbelievably
well?
short. I mean, look, I will say, Joe, after a game that has 6 turnovers, maybe I'm forgetting something here. I think we're back-to-back weeks where the special teams been pretty good. I mean, no unmitigated disasters on the special teams front, unless I'm just forgetting something in the midst of the 6 turnovers yesterday.
That is a very good point. I don't think that there was a special team.
Colts is coaching his butt off right now.
I mean, Colts finishing on a flourish, and everybody's ignoring it, talking about the quarterback. But the special teams coach, everybody.
I mean, come on. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Titans fans, this is your show. We want to hear from you. Load up our phone line, 615-737-1025. We'll continue the discussion on Will Levis to the bench yesterday. What changes need to be made with this franchise moving forward? The calls for changes for Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan getting louder. Where do you stand on that? All that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. We'll be joined by Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com coming up at 7:30. We'll get his thoughts on the Titans' 37-27 loss to Cincinnati and the benching of Will Levis. Cory Curtis from News 2 for his weekly visit coming up at 8 o'clock. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Titans fans, this is your show. We want to hear from you all show long. Will Levis to the bench yesterday, calls for change at the front office positions, even some with the head coach, getting louder and louder from Titans fans. We want to hear from you throughout the show today. Let's head to our 102.5 The Game phone line and welcome in Adam in Portland to the program. Adam, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
What's up, Robby and Joe, man? Hey, so I missed the first part of the show. I'm sure you talked about the rumbling, bumbling, stumbling T'Vondre Sweat.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit. That's the only good thing. Like, I'm glad to see that dude come alive. And he is athletic. But what's crazy, dude, is as big as he is and as hard as that stiffy was, Derrick Henry does it and he's athletic. Isn't that crazy to think?
It's pretty wild.
What an animal that dude. Anyway, yeah, dude, like I've just disconnected with the team, man. Like little things like that help, like pull me back into, hey, you got to start looking at mock drafts again or something. But dude, we shopped yesterday. You know what I'm saying? Like I've never done this, man. This has never been a year like this. My wife's like, you want to go shop? I'm like, I guess. Like I'll just kind of listen to it or peek at my phone. But it sucked, man. Like the whole thing is. It's not good. When Levis throws the pick that goes, I guess ends up for an interception down the left sideline or whatever, you're just sitting here going, all right, there's the one that, there's the Levis moment of the game. He keeps doing it. I'm disconnected with the team, man. I don't know week in and week out where I'm going to feel. Should we fire people? Should we run it back with Levis? I don't even know, dude. And usually I'll have a good sense. Like if our team sucks, just tell me they suck. And I can move on and be in that fire everybody group. But we're sitting here being pitched a lot of stuff from them. So I'm confused. I don't know what to do. I don't know moving forward where my head should be at week in and week out. It's a lot of jumbly crap, but that's how I feel as a fan, dude. Like I'm just like confused with the whole team. I don't even know. I'm just disconnected. I'll just say that.
Yep. Thanks for calling. I don't think Adam's alone there, Joe. And the problem that you get into here is it's so bad. At 3-11, you brought it. This is worst case scenario for Amy Adams-Strunk with the way this thing has gone on this year. The quarterback looks like he's gotten worse. A lot of the moves the front office has made with some of the players that you brought in have not worked out. I mean, even right now, your first round draft pick's not looking all that great with J.C. Latham struggling the way he is at the moment. And again, I don't know that I'm panicking over him, but it's not been good for the last month with Latham. And look, say what you want to say about the head coach. Has he had enough time? Probably not. But I would also say this, Joe. Brian Callahan has not had anywhere near enough of the answers in the positive so far this year, which is not a good place to be. Is that by itself fireable for Brian Callahan? I don't know. It's tough for me to get there. But like I if you're asking me what my confidence level is that Brian Callahan is just going to figure all this out next year, it's not high right now. Like there's not been enough answers any way you want to slice it with any part of the team that would indicate that a positive turnaround is right around the corner.
Right. Tough to have confidence in player acquisition, in player coaching, in players. Again, the QB thing is like, that's the, yeah, but if these, if these guys had a better QB, it would look all different. If you want to go there, and I'm not saying I'm going there, but that's where the whole QB thing gets also very interesting in this. I will say, Robby, on the, Adam says all jumbled is unclear. The biggest, I would argue, defender of Will Levis, a staunch defender, Kentucky fan, Dustin from Hopkinsville, right? We would agree. I mean, Dustin from Hopkinsville consistently says it's the line, it's the cut, whatever. It's not Levis. Well, he's got about 12 texts in a row here from starting, but I'll read this one. He says, quote, I still want him to work out, but I gave him the year. It's about up. And he went ham to the bat against the Bengals defense. I love him. Loved him at Kentucky. Want him to work out so badly, but we've got to move on from him after this year. If it's looking on the downward trend, man, it stinks. Should have moved on from Mariota earlier, and this is much worse at QB. Well, first of all, there's no doubt about that. I mean,
Even I would
Mariota,
admit
yeah.
that.
Yeah, my God, I hope so. So, but if you lose Dustin from Hopkinsville, that's just on the quarterback front, then I think I can't imagine you have too many people. We of course always have the Tennessee fans who want to chime in, right? Who are like, I told you he sucked. And it's like, okay, just there was different information along the way, but when you have someone like Dustin from Hopkinsville, basically giving up, that probably tells you something.
Well, look, I said, I don't even remember, it was week 5, week 6, whatever, I threw it out there that I was out on him. And was that probably a little premature? Maybe. I mean, it
looks better now.
Was it a little reactionary at the time? Probably. But like at some point, you just got to call a spade a spade. And yesterday was his 20th game. Like he's played 20 games. Is that like fair enough for a huge, is that totally representative of what he's going to be the rest of his career? I have no idea. But like to have a game like that yesterday, where you just keep turning the ball over and handing the ball to the other team on a platter. You've thrown 4 pick sixes this year, which is just a huge problem. Like at some point, you got to call a spade and just say he's not good enough. And he's not good enough. And I think the head coach kind of signaled that yesterday, Joe. Like with not only the benching, but like even when things were going poorly for Levis earlier in the year, Brian Callahan was always pretty consistent, right? Like he's our quarterback. Like when he is healthy, he will be the quarterback. He will be the starter. Mason Rudolph will be the backup. He didn't do that yesterday. I mean, I think we're getting to the point now where look, Brian Callahan could get up there today at the podium for his weekly Monday press conference and say, Will Levis is our starting quarterback. We got him out of the game. He's going to reset this week, and he's going to be the guy coming up next Sunday. But like, even if he says that to me, Joe, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like yesterday, I turned the TV off after that game was over. And the first thing I did, I looked around at my wife and I said, well, coach is done with the quarterback. That was my takeaway from yesterday's game. He's done.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to not think that, this also could get into, I mean, like if you're Amy Adams Strunk, coach may feel, is Amy Adams Strunk like, hey, I'm separate from everything. You guys do whatever you want to do. Or does she have a thought like, I mean, why is Mason? Someone asked in the text line, could Mason Rudolph show that he could be a decent starter next year in these last 3 games? No. Mason Rudolph is a backup quarterback in the NFL. There's nothing
you
he's
get your
doing.
Fans to really check out. Have that be your plan this offseason.
Just not that. So if you're Amy Adams Strunk, though, you also might be guys. I mean, you still play the kid. You still play the kid late, and frankly, because if you're her, I mean, I don't know. That's what's interesting too. It's like you're 3-11. Obviously, the higher the pick, the better. But do you really want 3 more experiences like this to go to 3-14? I mean, but regardless of that, like I could see people in the organization saying, but still, like you play him, right? Like what is there? There's seriously just no upside to playing Mason Rudolph. I don't know, but I agree with you. Yesterday, to me, and even his kind of lack of comment after the game, it's hard to not come away thinking he is done with Will Levis.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to blame him after a game like that. But then the question is like, to your point, what do you do if you're him? Because on the one hand, you can be done with the quarterback, and maybe it's as simple as, on that call that apparently he has with Amy Adams Strunk every week, which I think he's going to have at some point today. You say, hey, I gave it my best shot. I tried to work with Will Levis, and he's just not good enough. We got to do something else. And maybe she's receptive to that. I don't know what the answer is. But maybe, like, what if her response is, well, I brought you in to work with Will Levis, and he looks worse. Like, what does that say about you, right? And if you end up with going with Mason Rudolph the rest of the way, and you finish 3-14 or 4-13 or whatever it is, and that's the other thing. We had somebody bring this up on the YouTube chat. They still do have the Colts, who, by the way, nice performance by them yesterday, the Jags, and the Texans in what could be a totally meaningless game for the Texans at the end of the year left on their schedule. So they could run into a win or two here down the stretch. And then you might be picking 10th or 11th at that point in the draft based on everybody else keeps losing. Like you lost again yesterday, and everybody else around you in the draft order, with the exception of the Jets, lost yesterday. So
Because one of those teams had to win.
yeah, one of those teams had to win. Exactly. So that's the other part of this is like it really doesn't do you many favors as a franchise to win right now. And yet the coach is sitting there like, well, it could do me some favors. I need as many positive things as I could get.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, from his perspective, I think I do. I think that you have to like just be as simple as possible and like I have to win football games. So okay, all right. So then, what's your best chance of winning football games? If he's being honest right now, it's Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
Like especially with with Levis, the way he performed yesterday, he just looked really upset too. Upset at others, upset at himself, upset at all that. I don't know. Then he sort of then it's basically like the stadium reacting like, thank goodness he's out of the game. Saw him. There's video, and I apologize for who had it, but coming off the field, it looked like he was kind of getting some crap from some fans. So all of that, it's like at this point, I guess the one thing you could say is at least getting away from Nissan Stadium might be good for Levis. But if you're being honest, like your best chance of winning football games, Mason Rudolph. But what does that do for you? Because again, it's like he came in this summer, and part of the the overselling of this team was him talking about how excited he was to get a chance to work with Levis, right? And I think he was being honest. But again, then you're aiming at strong saying, okay, so you believed he had all these traits. You watched all this film of him. You talked to him. You guys talked about the offense and everything. You worked on all this stuff. And now this is what he is after all this time of you and your people working with him.
Yep.
Explain that, Brian.
Yep. I mean, it's a fair thing to bring up if you're Amy Armstrong. 615-737-1025. Our phone number. We'll have more on Will Levis's benching yesterday and the decisions on Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan that are upcoming at some point for Amy Adams Strunk. More on that next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game.
For him to have a chance to be your guy, and I don't know where you are in that point, but doesn't he have to be able to pull himself out of that? Don't guys in general have to be able to pull themselves out of it when they're going south?
Yeah, in general they do. I just think it went south really fast, and there was had a bunch of momentum change and shift, and it was just a decision that I made that it was to try to help spark us and maybe have him take a deep breath and take a seat. So yeah, there's a time and a place to fight through it, and there's a time and a place to do what I had to do today, and that's ultimately my decision to make, and that's what I felt like gave us a chance to at least climb back in the game at that moment.
As Brian Callahan after the game yesterday, Titans lose 37-27 to Cincinnati. Will Levis to the bench yesterday. We'll have Paul Kuharski with us here in about 10 minutes on the program. We'll get his thoughts on what this all means for Levis and the quarterback position for the Titans moving forward. Joe Rexrode, how would you describe the tenor of the text line today? A lot of things going on that text line.
Yeah, a lot of anger for sure. Some at us, some. I'm kind of going back and forth with Quinn Darius here, who says, first of all, you guys are talking about accountability, and one of the hosts sounds like he's still in bed. Listen, I need the pre-show meeting that starts at 3. Today we didn't start until 4, so you got to give me a little bit of time to get it cranking up here, But yeah, like I'm being accused of making excuses. I think some people want to it's just like, this team sucks. They all suck. Fire them all. That's fine. I mean, look, everything's on the table. Definitely a lot of even the Levis supporters, like I laid out there with Dustin, kind of saying, okay, yeah, I've seen enough too. There's just not a lot of still some questions about, okay, Levis is a backup next year. He's on a rookie deal. Why move on from him? And again, I don't disagree with that. I mean, he may well be on the team next year. I just think that you have to have one way or another an improved alternative to Mason Rudolph, right? And then it gets into who on that. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can take discussion. What are you doing at quarterback? What are you doing at coach? What are you doing at front office? How do they all hurt or help each other? Oh, Quindarius now says, make a stand. What do you want me to do, man? What can I do for you? I just hope that my voice is strong enough that it sounds like I'm awake at least at this point.
But thank you, Quindarius, for your participation.
Yeah, people are mad, and they should be. They should be mad. And if you know what, if that has to be mad at us, I will be here for you to deliver some punishment. You can go ahead and take it out on me. That's totally fine. Now he's saying, does the team pay you? They must. Yes, that is a good point. But how many times have we talked about like how Amy Anstruck needs to get out there and talk to people? Yes. No, very much.
Has your check cashed from the Titans yet?
Guys, what's wrong? Did you not see that amazing Tavondre Sweat run yesterday in the stiff arm? I mean, they had some good plays. Ridley had some good. Chig. What about Chig? I can find positives. I don't think things are as bad as people think, So thank you for pointing that out. I got to get back on message and on brand that all is well in Titans land.
Yes.
I mean, again, it's like the anger with people. It's like you're displacing your anger. Okay. And that's fine. I've seen it. I've done it before myself. So I think at this point, we just need to be here for people, Robby.
I think that's our responsibility on a day like today. And the interesting part is, I mentioned this, and a couple people in the YouTube chat have talked about this too. David says, isn't it so perfect that the Titans, while they continue to lose, so do 5 or 6 others. They can't even create losing separation. And going back to the Levis discussion, Joe, that's where this is starting to trend. And again, there's a billion different things that can happen between now and the first round of the NFL draft. I understand that. So this conversation can and will change several times. But let's say they end up exactly where they are right now, and that's, I think, with the 6th overall pick in the draft. Well, what if they come to the same evaluation that, as we sit here today, most draft people are coming to, which is if you want a quarterback, it's probably either Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward early in round 1, and then there's some drop-off after that, and you got to wait. Well, what if those two are off the board and you have to take a quarterback at some point, either in the draft or go find a veteran this offseason because of the way that Will Levis has played and a decision that may come at some point where you're moving on from him? I've said it. The last thing you want to have happen to you as a team, Joe, is to be forced into taking a quarterback. And it looks like they might be forced into taking a quarterback.
No, it's and that's if you do that, I mean, it's already odds against you. Even if it's like, oh yes, this is our guy, yes, and you get him, odds are still against you. If you get into that situation where you're taking one because you have to take one, I mean, just buckle up for more of this, and it's why it's such a tough situation. And again, it's like what's the front office's plan, what's the coaching staff's plan, but then also what's ownership's plan for them.
Yeah. No doubt. Absolutely.
Excuse me.
We'll have Paul Kuharsky from paulkuharsky.com with us coming up next on the program. We'll get his thoughts on the Will Levis benching and what this means for the quarterback position as they move forward, plus a lot of other things to get to with PK. We'll get into that. Preds fans, don't miss this Wednesday night Smashville live show at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs at 6 o'clock. See your Pred star players up close and personal. Your chance to get autographs and pictures as well. That's this Wednesday night at Brewhouse South in Cool Springs. Paul Kuharsky with us up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Titans fall 37-27 to Cincinnati. Will Levis to the bench yesterday. And to help us talk more about that, we head to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And welcome in our friend Paul Kuharsky from PaulKuharsky.com. PK, good morning. How are you?
I'm all right, guys. How you doing?
Awesome, man. Appreciate you taking time to be with us. So Levis to the bench. He throws 3 picks, turns it over again on the fumble. Another pick 6, which I believe is his 4th of the year. So what was that yesterday, PK, in your mind, an indictment on Levis from Brian Callahan in terms of how he views him long term? Is it just a one-game thing? How do you view that decision and the repercussions of it from Callahan after making it yesterday in the game?
Well, it certainly doesn't help him long term, whether he's benched or not, how he performed. But I think in the moment, he's just trying to salvage something and stop the bleeding. Because, that's one of the questions I asked. Doesn't he have to be able to kind of, pull the nose of the airplane up? And he certainly wasn't able to do that. And that's one of the most concerning things. Quarterbacks go through bad stretches and they have bad games, but you got to be able to level things off at some point. And, he just wasn't doing that in terms of the turnovers. And so I think the logic dictates that you've got to make a change there. And Rudolph was certainly a steadying force and better, though he managed to throw his pick as well. He played much better, obviously, than Levis, who just couldn't pull out of it.
Okay, PK. So if you're Brian Callahan, and let's say, you have obviously you have way more information about Will Levis than any of us do, but you're seeing what we're all seeing. And then you take everything else into account. What are you doing right now? What is the right move for Brian Callahan right now?
Yeah, I think you have to go back to Levis for these last 3 games. I don't see how playing Mason Rudolph helps you unless you feel like you've got to win. I don't even know that Mason Rudolph helps you necessarily, gives you a better chance to win. I don't think Callahan's in trouble. I mean, obviously it would help him to win games in the eyes of management, in the eyes of Amy Adams Strunk, who's the people that matters. But I've been fishing around, and I get the sense that everybody expects Amy Adams Strunk to stick with the status quo and to be patient. Now, that doesn't mean that she can't surprise everybody and not be patient and do something, unexpected or rash. I would call it rash. Many people maybe wouldn't call it rash. But I think they're just going to have to ride it out here. And 3 more games of him is still, to me, a better way to go. I mean, we're not too far removed from him playing pretty well. He had a 3-game stretch there with an elite yards per attempt. So that's a glimmer of something. The decision as to whether you're done with him, to me, isn't an in-season decision. It's a after-the-season decision.
So, PK, I do want to get your thoughts on this because we brought this up early in the show. Mike Herndon from PaulKuharsky.com putting it out there yesterday that he's out on Carthon. He's out on the whole regime. It's bad football, and it's getting worse, and nothing that he's seen suggests competence from this group. What did you make of what Herndon had to say, which I do think is representative and is growing to be more representative of a lot of Titans fans at this point?
Well, I think you should schedule him for Thursday after he has a column at paulkuharsky.com on Wednesday.
Okay.
Where I fully expect he will be expanding on these thoughts. I was surprised. I mean, Mike Herndon is very measured, thinks analytically, and he expanded on that with some more tweets and talked about just no improvement over the course of what he's seen. And I think that's a fair case and a fair argument. And he's not, obviously interested in seeing another free agent class and another draft. And that sounds like another an off season of Callahan working on his faults and all of that. I don't think it's going to go that direction, but I was surprised to hear that from Mike, and that holds a lot of heft for me. But I had somebody tweet me like, is that going to throw Amy Adams Strunk over the top? And I think Mike is a very important person in the media. And I'm thrilled that he writes at my site, but I don't think that Amy Adams Strunk is super plugged into Mike Herndon in terms of him being an influence on her. I wish he was.
It's really, I really appreciate you coming on here because the text line's been mad at me. I've been accused of being on the Titans payroll. I've said a lot of really positive things about him today. But Caleb says, good Lord, looking at yards per attempt as a hope. Pathetic take, PK. And Phil in Clarksville says, come on, guys. You got to ask PK how you can possibly stick with Levis. The guy's a turnover machine. I'll answer that quickly, Phil. Again, I'm going to ask you, what is the upside of Rudolph? Like, what does that do for anyone? I memean, again, I think I would disagree with you, PK. I do think he probably gives you a better chance to win. Or at this point, Levis, I mean, what he did yesterday and how everything went with that, he seems to be right back to just wondering about confidence and all this stuff. And the ball's just spraying all over the field on him. So I think they do have a better chance to win with Rudolph. But I'm with you.
I would agree with that.
What does it do for you?
Yes, and the predetermined reads are a big issue. But look, here's the thing. Everybody's angry at Levis because he was terrible. So they want him to suffer a consequence, which is him being benched. But 3 weeks ago, everybody wanted the Titans to lose out to get a high draft pick. So now you want him benched so that Rudolph comes in and gives you a better chance to win? Like, which is it? I mean, they said their plan was to play Levis through the season to see what they have. Now, he had a terrible game yesterday, but I don't understand why that one terrible game, and not that he's played great by any means, but like they didn't say we're going to play Levis this season until he has a game that everybody thinks is like the decider game, right? So they've got two crappy teams coming up in a row now. I think you still continue. Look, Will Levis is going to be on the roster next year. I'm sorry to advise people of that. You can't toss him away, a guy with mentally he's not getting it done. Physically, he's got a lot of things you want in a quarterback. There aren't a lot of great alternatives for them. Sam Darnold's going to cost a fortune, and he's no guarantee. Shedeur Sanders is no guarantee. The kid from Miami is no guarantee. It's a bad time to need a quarterback. And, everybody wants him out, but nobody knows what the alternative is. I hate to break it to people, but he's on the roster next year. It's a matter of what he's doing there. And they've got 3 games left. They need to do something with those 3 games. And I don't know if people recall, but when Mason Rudolph did play for those 3 games, it wasn't a magical time.
PK, what's your evaluation, your concern level with J.C. Latham and the way that he's played for really the last 3-4 weeks? When you look at it, has not gone overly well for him at the left tackle spot.
They only gave up 1 sack yesterday. The 3 penalties were bad. He kind of said yesterday like he would dispute 2 of them. But look, he's taken a bad dip here. Blake Bedingfield wrote in his preview at my site that, if he didn't get it straight the rest of the season, he said it was like 5 games to him, not 3 games. And so now it would be 6 games to him if he didn't get it straight, that they would have to think about him not being left tackle and shop for a left tackle and put him back to right tackle. Now, I don't think the Titans will think like that. Guys clearly got a lot of upside, but, this Rand Carthon resume, to me, takes a dent here if Latham finishes the season playing poorly the second half of the season. So I think he's becoming a little bit of a question mark in terms of his resume. He's not played well enough, though he blocked pretty well yesterday. The penalties are a concern. And, he's talking with some of us about the constant wave of good pass rushers. I think he's getting used to the concept that there's going to be somebody good every week. And that, to me, is a mindset that he should have arrived at already. So, nothing is simple or locked in or a given with this team. Yeah, I just want to go back to Levis for a second, because I don't want to join Joe here in terms of the two of us getting pitchforks and torches. He was terrible yesterday. It's a huge dent in terms of, the hopes for him going forward. I don't know what people exactly want them to do. Like, you can't cut him today and be done with him.
Why were you not joining me? What are you talking about?
Like, you obviously.
I agree with you.
Yeah, I know, but I don't. We're going to be perceived as positive on Levis, and I don't know that we're positive. We're slightly negative, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, there's definitely. Yeah,
we're reasonable.
Well, there's a range. Yeah, there's still a range with him, but it's shifted to way more negative overall. Like, again, even the people on our text line who have been long time, like Kentucky people who love him, are like, okay, yeah, that's enough. So that tells me something. But yeah, obviously some people have said he'll never complete a pass, and those are largely Vols fans who thinks the Titans slapped him in the face when they drafted. One last thing, PK. I want you to compare the depths of this situation right now, just at this moment, just a temperature check with the worst you've seen, which I guess is basically every 10 years. It's like a organized crime war has to happen every 10 years. Compare this to the worst you've seen. Just overall vibes and lack of hope and all of it.
I mean, I can't remember super clearly the Wisenhunt stuff. I did go back during this season at one point and compare the numbers, and I was surprised that the numbers for this team were worse than the numbers for Wisenhunt. But this is at the very least as bad as it's ever been.
Which is just a great time around here. PK, awesome stuff, man. Looking forward to talking to you on Wednesday and a little bit more later this week. Have a good rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care, boys. Thank you.
Paul Kuharski, our guest, joins us every Monday morning at 7:30 after the Titans game, and, of course, on Wednesdays from 8 to 9, talking all things Titans as well. The Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
You're talking about a microdiscectomy. Ugh. By the way, I didn't even realize this. He also has had a torn ACL in the past and sciatica symptoms from lifting weights that required a different surgery. So 2 surgeries plus an ACL. What was that last word? Sciatica. Yeah, it is buns. Sciatica. Okay. And I may be totally butchering that. Symptoms from lifting weights.
You probably are.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's sciatica. Oh my God, I'm an idiot.
Simpler times, Joe, when the only thing you had to worry about with the Titans was, are they going to screw up the draft pick? But now you got to worry about everything else in addition to that. It is time for the Rex Rant with Joe Rexrode. Joseph, the floor is yours.
I like how he mashed up some buns in there.
That's good.
Little buns mash up, so to speak. Okay, so first of all, I just want to say I'm at my brother's house. My family, I bounce around different family members. They're like, I can only handle them for a day. So I hope people can see this awesome Virginia Tech piggy bank right here.
Oh,
I learned yesterday, Robby. Shout out to my brother. He brought me eggs, bacon, and like this giant thermos of coffee while the show was going on. And also, Robby, he told me yesterday. I didn't know this because it came up about your hatred for Shane Beamer, and he's "Oh yeah, I had him in English class. Shane Beamer was a year ahead of him. Boy, you guys could have." Some great Shane Beamer stories yesterday around here. I had no idea.
Well, I may need to participate in that.
Yeah, he's got some stories that'll make you like him even more. Okay, quick sub rant before I get to the main point today, which is going to be attacking a coworker. But quick sub rant. Good point by Tyler, who says, if this Rex rant isn't about how stupid professional athletes are for not knowing to secure the balls they run across the goal line, I don't know what I'll do. God. Prime opportunity. Tyler, great call. Why does this happen? I swear it happens more. Why is this happening so often? It happened twice yesterday.
I don't understand.
And Jonathan Taylor totally screwed the Colts with his.
I don't understand it. Like, it's first off, like this idea that you've just got to drop the ball as soon as you cross the goal line. What's wrong with carrying the ball into the end zone, making sure you're in there for about 8 steps, and then doing whatever you want to do with it after that? Who cares? But like the fact that this continues to be a thing of dropping the football a step and a half before you get in the end zone, when it's happened at this point like 6 times per year in college and pro football, it's unbelievable to me.
It used to be like basically, I mean, some people had more elaborate celebrations, but for the most part, like everybody spiked it.
Yeah. Like
it was just you just spike it, right? You get in the end zone and you spike it. And some, again, some people will twirl it, whatever. I remember back in the day, the glory days, Barry Sanders would always find the ref and flip it to him. That's fine too. All of those things guarantee that you're going to cross the goal line with the ball. This whole get rid of it, drop it. Like it's a hot potato is just bizarre. So good call, Tyler. So I hope that sufficed for you. Listen, today I need to get after Big Joe Dubin. I am sick of this crap, Robby. I am sick of this crap. And I want to ask you, we love Big Joe, and by the way, shout out to Big Joe and Chase. That Fox 17, I think, who did a feature on him, and the talking about mental health, and I can't say enough about that or how important that is, and I think that's just awesome that he's made that a centerpiece of their show. Also, holy crap, Joe Dubin, I'm going to beat you up. This Quindarius Washington is him.
Yeah,
what are his names? You already knew this crap.
Yes.
Oh my God, I hate you both.
How did you figure it out?
Well, so let me just read these. So he changes his name. What are some of his other names he's changed to?
Well, there was Jenna Talia.
Yeah, Jenna Talia. Yeah, there's a nice one. You 12-year-old.
Joanna from Donaldson.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, now we got Quindarius Washington. So he's like, he starts with the host sounds in bed, talking about lack of accountability. We go back and forth a little bit. Then he's like, y'all search for excuses and joy de vivre from a team that's not good. I'm like, what? Who is this? Then he keeps going back to sleep in the host. I'm like, okay, blah, 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 whatever. Then he gets into, does the team pay you? Because Joe knows that the triggering thing for me is this, you're a homer. The team pays you. You're making it. He knows that what triggers me. So then I'm finally like, okay, I said, have a day as fantastic as the time. So I'm trying to be like chill, Yep, sure thing. All right. Then he starts talking about Machiavellian BS you're sprouting. again, talking on the payroll. But this is what gave him away. Okay. Now I said, like, you're not making any sense. What does that mean? You know, then he's like, thankfully, Paul's talking common sense, but lack of accountability. We were listening in the break room and just started laughing when you said that. I'm like, all right, now you're just, this is like what Big Joe does, right? He makes up these like scenarios like, you know, my kids heard you swear in the car, whatever. How is it? What, you know, all the good things you do, Joe, can you not do something better with your time than troll other shows? Why don't you troll a show on another network? Why don't you troll them?
No, I enjoy
Why
this
you got to troll us?
because it works every time. This is like the 5th time he's done this to you, and it will work again in the future too. And I look forward to it.
So wait a minute. So you're telling me that you know this stuff? He tells you in advance.
Oh, we've had complete text conversations about it for about a week and a half.
I'm absolutely fine. Okay, that's fine. You don't think I can get you? You just wait.
Oh, you
that's
can.
Fine. That's fine.
The fact that this is now the 6th time that he's gotten you is just more and more funny to me. And look, I don't know about it originally, and then I figure it out, and then we play a game to see how long it takes for you to figure it out. And sometimes it takes a long time.
Okay. See, I'm okay with you're like wondering what's going on, and then you figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. But if it's premeditated with you,
No.
that is.
But it is fun to watch.
Okay.
Once I do figure it out, it's fun to watch for how long it takes you to figure it out. I know that.
Do something more productive with your time than messing up your own shows, Big Joe. This show could have been awesome today. We were having amazing conversation. You derailed it with your trolling.
Thank you, Quindarius, for texting in. 615-737-1025, our phone number, 615-737-1025. Cory Curtis from News 2 will be with us coming up next. We'll get into all things Titans with him after the loss yesterday to Cincinnati. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, the game. Final hour, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Nick Keyser here with you on this Monday morning. Titans lose 37-27 to Cincinnati. And Will Levis, 3 picks, 1 pick six, 1 fumble lost, and a trip to the bench yesterday for the Titans. To help us talk more about that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Cory Curtis from News 2. Cory, good morning. How are you?
Oh, I'm peachy. Robby, how are you and your stupid Packers in their white uniforms?
Well, 110 games. That was a potential playoff preview last night, and they smoked Seattle. I'm feeling good about it.
Oh, come on. The Seattle, they're posers. We all know that.
Well, I know that, but that's what the playoff matchup would have been, so I'm looking forward to it. But now the Rams have passed them, so we'll see how that goes.
The great news for Titans fans is you got to watch that game and go, okay, Sam Howell is not an option.
My God. He's awful. No doubt about no doubt about that. I didn't realize he threw 21 interceptions last year, but he did.
My mom always told me, Cory, consistency is the mark of a champion.
Yeah, no doubt about that. 21 touchdowns, 21 picks for Sam Howell a year ago. Discovered that last night. So, Cory, Levis to the bench. Just a brutal day for him yesterday. 3 picks, 1 pick six. He fumbled the ball as well. And Brian Callahan talking about, just had to make a move in the middle of the game yesterday. Sure. Does that move that he made yesterday signal anything to you beyond just yesterday's game? Is that an indictment from Callahan on Levis moving forward? How do you view his benching in the aftermath of it?
Well, look, what do you have? 3 turnovers on 7 plays?
Yeah.
I just think any reasonable person's going to say, all right, unless you're Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers or whoever, and you've got the skins on the wall at that point, you probably come out of the game. I thought he handled the situation, talking about Callahan after the game, as best he could to, not pour gasoline on that fire. I think, at some point you owe it to your team to make that move when things kind of go south and go south in a hurry, and try to kind of reverse it. And Mason had a turnover, himself, on top of, being able to lead the team. But, they did right the ship, a little bit. It's what I've considered it all along, and that is looking at Will Levis through the entire season. I felt that way when he had the stretch of 4 pretty good games. I told everybody I'm not going to overreact to that. I'd say he's on the right path to being the guy now. You feel good about the direction he's headed in, but now you look at these 2 games against 2 subpar defenses, and you say, yeah, we don't like the direction of these last 2 games. So I think you can make an easy case to say he's going to start the last 3 because we need to get a full dose of what he is, how he responds to adversity, if he's able to bounce back or not. And then if you want to sit him, you can just say, look, it's for the best interest of the football team that we move on. And nobody's going to sit here and go, well, you really, you're 3-11. There's not a lot of wrong turns at this point.
Okay. Well, how do you interpret either choice, and what do you think Callahan will actually do?
That's hard to say because we've only had him here for 1 year. So trying to figure out, who he is and what he is. I just where the organization is, I would guess that they'll go back to Will, because I don't think that they've got a lot to gain by going to Mason. Maybe you win, Will could win as many games as Mason if he plays well. We don't know. But, if you win, 1 or 2, if you say you win 2 of these games, down the stretch, does that really do a whole heck of a lot for you with goodwill with fans and everything? Probably not. You're still 5-12. So I still think it's in your best interest to get the best answer you can about the guy taking your snaps, and if you think you can go forward with him or not.
So, Cory, obviously a lot of Titans fans are really mad today, mostly at Levis, which deservedly so. I guess I'm looking at this more in the long-term view of it. Like, this would be a great year to not have to draft a quarterback from the standpoint of there's just not a ton of great options that I think are available to you.
Yeah,
But
you can't reach.
Yeah, like you can't reach. And the last place you want to be as an organization is to be forced into picking a quarterback. Now, having said that, I mean, the total picture right now for Levis this year is not good. I mean, it's not good. It's well below expectation of where we thought this would be by the end of it. And we'll see, you know, if they go forward and he's got 3 more games, that's a part of the evaluation. But if this is it and this is what you got to go on these 2 years of Levis and you get to the end of this for your Callahan, like right now, if the season ended today, I don't know how you don't have a different starting quarterback in here next year. Am I crazy?
No, you're not crazy. Which is why I say you start in the last 3 games, so you get, so you can really say, we gave this every chance that we could, and because I agree with you, I don't think there's a ton of great options after that. The hard part for Brian Callahan and company is deciding with Will Levis, not just what is he, but what can he truly become? Because I don't know that any of us thought that Malik Willis could come to near what he's been this year after 2 years, correct?
Correct.
I mean, we thought he was lucky to be able to take the snap after 2 years. I mean, it was bad. And then he comes in here and just smokes him. Did anyone think that Sam Darnold would be what he is this year?
No.
Did anyone think that Geno Smith would have the career he's gone on to have? No. So that's my point is, do you look at him and say, it may take some time and we're willing to put in some time to get across the finish line with him because we think he can do it? Now, that's a leap of faith. Your job counts on that. And that's what makes that very difficult, okay, is you have to be willing to bet your job as an NFL head coach, which has been your dream your whole life, that this is the guy who can do it. I mean, even if you don't make that bet and you change it, you're still betting the next guy saves your job because he's not going to get a third quarterback. That's just not the way this thing works. And so, that's what the decision is. I don't know how much of it's on Brian Callahan. I don't know how much of it's on Amy. I don't know how much of it's on Rand, at this point. But there's those factors that get involved into this. But it's, again, the long-term projection, because we get caught into these short-term projections. If you recall, Steve McNair was booed early in his career and people wanted Neil O'Donnell. Okay. Well, they stuck with Steve and it turned out pretty well. I am not saying that Will Levis is Steve McNair. I'm just saying that it's the projection of the position and of the player and what you think they are and what you think that they're capable of. And what do you truly believe and where are you going to push the chips on the table?
So taking the Levis, you mentioned Callahan, taking the Levis discussion to him, it is less than a full season together. But obviously, Callahan expressed excitement. Callahan came in, and the biggest thing on his resume was this guy has been with great quarterbacks. He's about developing quarterbacks. How much of this year do you think should be on him, or how much scrutiny should he be under for the overall inconsistency and poor play of Levis?
That's a good question. Look, I think coaching is hard, number one. Having done very little of it, but the little of it I've done, I know it can be maddening and difficult because, like it goes to the missed passes against Jacksonville. Was that a coaching situation? I mean, he's got the X's and the O's drawn, but then you can say, well, why isn't Will making those throws then? Is he not being coached to be able to process that and make those throws? That's, I always get into this thing of, great players have a hard time being coaches because they just say, well, we'll do this. I did this. It's just not that easy. And, I'm sure what Brian teaches Matthew Stafford, or, he doesn't teach Peyton Manning anything, but, teaches, any of these other guys, it isn't the same as teaching Will or teaching Mason, because no two guys process it the same way. I think, it's a bigger question with Will than with the team because, and I'm hemming and hawing here a little bit. With the team, I thought we saw him coach to his team and his personnel better yesterday. They ran the ball at the goal line. They scored at the goal line. And I thought he learned from that and did a better job with that, responding to what his team is and what they do well. And so he's got to figure that out with his quarterback. And, you would say those 4 games when he came back from injury, he did a good job coaching him, right? Because the kid came back, he had 2 interceptions in 4 games. He was averaging 240 yards per game. They still needed to score more points, but he wasn't making a big mistake, and he was taking to the coaching. So then, what happened the last 2 weeks, and is that on the head coach? At some point, players have to play, and so that's not writing Brian Callahan a free pass, but it's the position. Okay, it's the pressure of the position that you've got to figure some of this stuff out. And for some guys, it just takes longer, and for some guys, it just never happens. And so I'm going to lean more on the quarterback than on the coach in this one, but that's just my view from 30,000 feet, and I'm not in love with it.
Yeah, no doubt. Cory, great stuff as always, man. Appreciate you taking time to be with us, and just continues to be a lot of fun to discuss this football team.
It's interesting because it's like you brought up early on. It's an interesting position to be in a year where it's going to be difficult to draft a quarterback.
Yeah,
and you see Sam Darnold and his success in Minnesota, and you say, would he be that successful here with this team and this roster? And what he's doing, because he's got some pretty good players around him, in Minnesota, and maybe he would be, maybe he wouldn't. That's the great mystery, the great unknown. And then what are your other options? I mean, outside of the draft, what are their other options? Jake Browning is he an option?
Go get my guy Jameis. If we're gonna lose,
Okay.
At least be fun.
Jameis has 12 interceptions in the last 6 games.
Oh, I know.
Okay,
That ain't changing either, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's not. That's who he is.
Sign me up.
And how many points did they score yesterday?
I didn't even see what they did yesterday. 7.
7. Okay.
It's the Chiefs, man. So, it's the mighty Chiefs.
All right. So we're just going to excuse it. Look, you look at a guy from a distance, and then you just go, oh, yeah, well, we'll just put him in there.
Yeah.
And then you get him here, and what you say? God, he really stinks. Whose decision was this?
Yeah, exactly.
Look at his numbers. You knew he stunk. What were you thinking? Okay. So let's cool the Jameis talk. And unless you want him to come in as your backup, it's just, Jameis, Gardner Minshew, they're the same person. All right. They can flash in a game and put up some points, but more likely than not, they're going to commit turnovers to lose games because that's who they are. All right. They've both been in the league long enough where that's who they are. And that's the question is, we're 2 years in, who is Will Levis? And we're still trying to answer that. We think we've got a more definitive answer, but you have to be willing to accept, is that the final answer?
Yep. Cory, great stuff, man. We'll talk to you next week.
I am a damn genius.
You are.
God, how do you guys handle this?
It's unbelievable. Cory Curtis from News 2 joins us every Monday morning at 8 o'clock here on the program. We'll react to what Cory had to say. Plus, I've got a question that I want to toss Rexrode's way that I would love to get Titans fans answers on as well. We'll do that next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
rocking around the Christmas tree.
Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. Appreciate Cory Curtis for being with us in the last segment. So, Joe, we've gotten deep into the Will Levis future of the Titans quarterback position conversation after his benching yesterday. We'll continue to do so. We'll continue to take your thoughts on that. One thing I'd love to get your thoughts on now in the aftermath of all the discussion we've had today. Let's say we get to the end of this season in the next few weeks here, and Amy Adams-Strunk sits down with Rand Carthon after the year, sits down with Brian Callahan after the year, and approaches them with this and says, guys, this is the end of the year. It's obviously been a very disappointing season, and quite frankly, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know if you guys are coming back next year or if you're not. I haven't made that decision yet. So you tell me, why do you deserve to come back next year? Why do you need, what do you deserve to keep this role for? Like, why, as we look at the future of this franchise and we look at what we've seen from this point, why do you deserve to keep your job? What's your response if you're a Carthon or a Brian Callahan?
Well, they're different, obviously. I mean, for Callahan, my response is, well, look, I just got started, and all due respect, the reason people usually get coaching jobs is because they're not because they're taking over great football teams. I didn't. I've made mistakes. I don't know, how much do you do that? How much do you be like, look, I will take accountability to a point, but I came into a bad team. I have a system. I have a program in place. I have things I want to build. I need better players, and I need more time. And I guess I'd also. I mean, if you're Callahan, you're going to try to point to the good things. Hey,
it's a long list.
Would you like to? Yeah. Would you like to sit down, Amy, and watch that Houston game again? Let's watch that front to back. What do you think? Huh? Let's just watch that. But
remember that performance I had coaching that moved you to tears?
Exactly. But that's, I mean, the case, if I'm him, is, look, I'm just getting started, and I took over a bad football team, and certainly I can be better, but also we need to be better. Like we need to have better players. If I'm Carthon, I mean, look, it's been 2 years, and sure, it's a different head coach each year, but ultimately, I think my case, if I'm Carthon, is, look, Snead is still a great player, and he's going to be back next year, and you're going to see. Awuzie is a great player, and he's on the field now. He's going to be back there next year. We got Brownlee in there. We got some parts of this team that are good, and let's see what else you can point to. Latham's going to be a really good player. Now, of course, again, let's watch film of earlier in the season and not recently. When I tell you that, you go through, Sweat. Did you see Sweat running with the ball the other day? That's just going to be a fantastic pick for us. I mean, I'm going through the things that look good. I'm trying to minimize the things that look bad. It's a lot longer list, right? Of course. And I mean, that's it. Like, making your case is, obviously there's a double the track record for Carthon, very different jobs. They go together. Look, Callahan has some say, just as Vrabel did, in the decisions and personnel. And, ultimately Carthon hired Callahan. That's another thing about this, right? Is like, also, you loved this coach, Rand. So why, right? But, and that's going to be part of my argument too, if I'm Rand Carthon. Callie is going to be great. Like, it's early. I know it's rough now. I am going to say, look at Detroit. Look at Detroit. Everybody wanted to run those people out of there. And yes, you can counter that, but I'm going to try. I'm going to say that. I'm going to talk about other places that started rough early, got it rolling. Cincinnati's another one of them.
I think the point of everything that we just laid out there, like, it's becoming way tougher of a sell to me. It's becoming way tougher of a sell. And I'm with you. I think it's two very different things. Like Callahan, I think it's a much easier sell than Carthon. Like, you point to, this is the situation that I inherited. I took this team over after you just fired the previous coach, and the quarterback just isn't good enough. And when I get my own quarterback in here, then we can really start to work and build towards the future, and we'll get better. Carthon, I mean, look, you can still point to the drafts that Robinson screwed up if you want to, right? Like if you're him, you can say, look, I mean, Burks was a bad pick, Farley's a bad pick, Wilson's a bad pick. It's hard to overcome that. It's going to take some time. You could do that. I just the thing I keep coming back to that Herndon laid out there in his tweet that we talked about, and that I continue to watch on a weekly basis. Who's getting better? Like, is Will Levis getting better? We thought so for a while, and then the last 2 games he's been awful. Is J.C. Latham getting better right now? Hard for me to say that. Like, who is? What are the bright spots to point to in terms of the improvement of this team? Like you brought up Snead there. Like if I maybe Adam Strunk, I'm looking at him and I'm saying, well, he couldn't get on the field this year, and you were the one that pulled the trigger and made the trade. So you just think he's just going to be available for 17 games next year? Like, how do you know that? How could you possibly have any confidence in that? It's just, to me, it's becoming harder and harder of a sell with this group right now.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. The improving thing, obviously, when you say who's getting better, that's a coaching thing, right? I mean, ultimately, it's a coaching thing. I mean, I guess it can be a bad player evaluation thing too. Like, Latham personally, I still believe Latham's going to be good. I think Latham has a lot going for him in terms of the intangibles, and I think he's too talented to not be good. He's having a rough run right now. That's the thing. It just makes it harder, right? Like, I believe that, and I'm sure Rand probably believes that, and Callahan does too. But if you're Amy Adams Strong, it's like, well, I just watched the kid last week, the QB just took a missile to the back because he didn't even touch the guy who was blocking.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, everything's a tough sell right now, but I very much, that's the thing. Like, does that conversation happen? Probably not.
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, it would be great, like if this was like if the Titans had an in-season Hard Knocks, or if this was a football movie, then you have to have that conversation. But to me, it's probably going to be more like these guys are just going to do their jobs for the year and then just kind of hold tight on that Monday. Just grip the desk and just hope to not get a call.
Well, and PK said it earlier on our show. I mean, the sense that he gets is that she's leaning towards being patient with all this. I know that's not what a lot of Titans fans want to hear, but PK did throw that out there earlier in the show. And that's not nothing. Like that's not PK just grabbing that out of thin air, Joe.
No, exactly. I think this whole thing's coming back next year. I do. But I even feel better about that based on what he said. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear it, but I think that's what's going to happen.
615-737-1025, our phone number. Take your thoughts on the coaching staff, the front office, the benching of Will Levis. What does all of it mean for the future of this organization? More on that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Got some tickets to give away to see Belmont men's basketball as they take on UC Irvine at the Fisher Center this Thursday night. Be caller 3-615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Also, check out this week's Nashville's Best Deal from Brewster's Real Ice Cream in Hendersonville. Brewster's offers handcraft cakes, pies, and ice cream flavors of peppermint, Oreo, eggnog, and gingerbread, man. Enjoy the magic of homemade happiness this season. Visit thegamenashville.com/deals and get half off a $50 gift card while supplies last. Taking your thoughts on the Titans, 615-737-1025. Joe, I'll be very interested to see what Brian Callahan has to say today in his weekly Monday press conference on the Will Levis front. Levis goes to the bench yesterday. We've talked with PK and Cory Curtis, who have both kind of thrown it out there that they expect the Titans to go back with Levis. You know, I agree with him from the standpoint of, like, what does throwing Mason Rudolph out there really do to serve your purposes if you're the Tennessee Titans? But I am interested to see, like, we've seen it before in this league, Joe. Sometimes you reach kind of the point of no return with a quarterback. I'm not saying that that's what happened yesterday with Callahan. I'm not saying that's not what happened yesterday with Callahan either. I'm interested to see what his thoughts are on Will Levis later today.
Yeah, for sure. Is he going to make a definitive he's back in the starting, or, you know, we're going to go with Mason, or, you know, guys, we'll just have to see type thing. Three choices. And going to be very interesting. Yeah, look, I'm of the mind that I'd go with Levis the rest of the way. I'd go with Levis the rest of the way because it's still continued evaluation. I mean, and it can be, just because I think most people would agree. Again, we've got the hardcore Levis supporters now who are like, yeah, it's just not he's not the guy. But the evaluation doesn't have to be just evaluation to see if he's the guy. I mean, I think you're going to find very few people who are like, no, I think ultimately he's going to be a great QB for the Titans. Someone pointed out the text line, Robby, like, well, what'll happen is either he'll stay with the Titans and stink, or he'll go somewhere else and then he'll be great. This is the lot in life of the Titans fan. But you're still evaluating, is he okay? Maybe he can be the placeholder next year with the rookies drafted. He can be the backup next year. I mean, it's like there's just no upside to me with Mason Rudolph. And frankly, although I know Bill and Brian Callahan badly want wins in these last three games. So that's where it gets interesting. Again, if I'm the front office ownership, it's like, look, at this point, the embarrassment's happened. It's a disaster of a season already. So, frankly, how about the highest pick at this point with 3 games left? I mean, that's the mindset. They're not going to tank.
They're not going to tank. Like, if you're Brian Callahan, do you want wins right now? Like, I get it, job preservation. But, like, if you win 2 of the next 3, is that really changing how people view this season? And, like, if I'm Callahan, I'm like, how do you get me a quarterback? Like, what's the best route to getting a quarterback?
Yeah, but I do think you do want to win. I think first of all, you don't know. You have no idea what this owner is going to do, but you do know that a little more than a year ago, she basically wanted everyone to know that Vrabel was coming back, and then 6 weeks after that, nope, he's gone.
Yeah.
So I think you do want to win, and I do believe. Again, we've talked about, but like we talked about earlier in the show, I do believe in the idea of getting a good feeling with a team and winning some games and carrying that into the next season. Like,
but isn't it too late for that? Like, there's 3 weeks left.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I've seen it before where, like, again, the wonderful Detroit Lions, history book, but there was let's see, like maybe it was Barry's rookie year. They were crap. They were like 2-8, 2-9, and they won like 5 in a row at the end of the year. And I know that's more than 3, but then they carried that and actually were good the next year. Was it because of that? No, I don't know. But I think there's still guys you're coaching. I think these guys still want to win. They're out there, like, again, playing this game, the violence of this game. They want to win. I think there's value in trying to win if you're Brian Callahan on multiple fronts. But the Levis thing is still like I think it goes into, but if you don't, well, then there's a possible benefit there too. To me, there's no real argument for Mason Rudolph.
No, I don't think there's an argument for Mason Rudolph either. But now, I think the general takeaway that I've got from the day is if you're not there already, you are drifting pretty darn close into, okay, well, there's got to be a different quarterback in here next year. And there's some people may
different
disagree
choice.
with that. A different
choice for starter, like either a veteran who you signed who a lot of people have thrown out Daniel Jones today. I mean, I know that's not very inspiring.
Yeah.
I think he's probably going into the backup vortex along with a lot of these guys. But Daniel Jones, one good season with the Giants is well beyond what we've seen from Will Levis at any point. So it's either as a backup to whoever they can figure out on the veteran front, or I think as a placeholder competitor with the rookie. And then, of course, he probably starts 3-4 games. They go 1-3. He's not good, and they go to the rookie.
Well, it's just if this doesn't work out with Levis, and this is the way they choose to go. And look, as bad as it was yesterday, they may get to the end of this season and say, you know what? We don't love our options out there. We're going back with Levis, and we're seeing how it goes. And that's going to go over like a lead balloon with Titans fans. I understand that. But that's where they're at right now. They're just not in a good spot right now. I mean, their draft position didn't change at all yesterday. They lose another game, and they're still at 6th overall right now. Which again, the positioning and the bickering back and forth between the strengths and weaknesses of these quarterbacks in the draft is going to change 1,000 times over between now and the time the first round comes here. And so I get that. But if you're not in one of those top 2 or 3 positions to draft a Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward, and it ends up breaking out that you just don't really love any quarterbacks after that, your franchise is in a spot where you are in the quarterback wilderness searching for an answer there. And until you find an answer there, like it's hard to get yourself out of this stuff. Like then you're right back into the same cycle that you entered this season coming into is, well, does Levis have anything? If not, with the rookie quarterback, does he have anything? Like you're just restarting the clock on all this. And that goes back to the larger conversation with the organization as a whole. When in the world are they pulling themselves out of it? I mean, it's been now 2.5 years of brutal football, this being the worst of it this year. And it feels like you're about to dip right back into the wilderness of quarterback purgatory, searching for that next one. And you just may not be in a good spot to find it this offseason.
9-29 is now the number. Last 38 games, 9-29. And that's the problem, too. It's like the evaluation of quarterbacks, and more people were making this point when they were like, I think Levis could be the guy. You don't have a team that helps a quarterback. So, you go, I don't know, you go into the second round or third round. No, they don't have a third round pick. Second round, you take Carson Beck, right? Or whatever. You take a flyer on one of those guys who isn't at the very top of the draft. And it's like, okay, well, are you going to fix your offensive line this offseason? Are you going to have enough on the outside? Is your defense going to, force turnover? Like you don't have a good situation for a quarterback. So it's a lot easier to keep going in and out of quarterback purgatory when you don't have a good team to give the QB a chance. Everybody wants to find the quarterback that can drag everyone along with them, but you're just trying to find a good quarterback who can win with a good team, and you have neither.
Yeah. The thing I keep coming back to is, do you have full confidence that these are the right people to make the decision on the next quarterback? Like that's another big part of this, because right now, like the best argument for retaining Brian Callahan and Rand Carthon is, well, continuity and patience. Now, what are the good reasons for continuity and patience? There's not a ton to point to, as we just kind of laid out with what's going wrong and what's going right with this football team right now. But like if Amy Adams Strunk wants to keep this regime together, like I guarantee you, one of the things that she'll point to, if she says anything at all about it, is we believe in continuity and we gotta see this thing through. And right now, the evidence just doesn't support that this group has any clue what they're doing right now. And that's, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but the evidence is not there that they do at this point. And that's a heck of a gamble to take on selecting the next quarterback if that's the case.
Yeah. So you could let this sound, I know this sounds wonderful, I'm sure, but so you could look at it like, okay, this offseason, coaching staff, everybody coming back, Levis coming back, right? Sure. Like that's right now the one thing that Titans fans do not want to hear. But then, if it goes the way it would appear it would go, then you could do the full reset of new front office, new coach, pick your quarterback, everybody on the same timeline. The problem is, again, the misery between now and that point is not great. And again, and if you're these guys running the team, you're like, no, we have to win next year.
Right.
Got to win next year. So then how do you do that? Then you're just desperately just doing the most you can do at veteran quarterback and hoping you can patch together an 8-9 win season.
It's a horrible spot to be in.
It's a bad situation.
Absolutely horrible spot to be in. 615-737-1025, our phone number. Final thoughts on the Titans loss to Cincinnati, the benching of Will Levis. Got a lot of your thoughts to get to as well. We'll do that next. Robby and Rexrode, 1025, 1063, The Game. 1025 The Game and Cromwell Media have teamed up with the Nashville Predators for Coats for Kids, benefiting the Boys and Girls Club of Middle Tennessee. Donate a new or slightly used coat at the Game Studio and the Ford Ice Centers in Antioch, Bellevue, and Clarksville. Also, this Friday, the game will be at Ford Ice Center in Bellevue from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., taking donations, giving away swag, and tickets to upcoming Preds games as well. Coat donations will be accepted at the Preds home game coming up this Saturday against the Kings. For more information, visit thegamenashville.com/coach. Joe, some more numbers to kind of throw on top of everything we've discussed today. So Buck Rising put this out there earlier. Yesterday's loss to the Titans, or yesterday's loss to the Bengals, the 7th loss by the Titans of 10 or more points this season, which is an astronomical number in the NFL. Mike Herndon, adding to that, says in 2022 and 2023, so both of those seasons, when this whole bad wave of football started, Titans had 8 losses of 10-plus games, or of 10-plus points in 34 games. So 8 in 34 games by 10-plus points. 7 losses in 14 games this year by 10-plus points. That kind of shows you where things are right now.
Yeah, that's a very good stat. Yeah, I mean it's losing, continuing in this 9-29 stretch that goes back to the plane from Green Bay.
It does.
But the losing is now more decisive and more embarrassing this year. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Apologies to everybody on the text line who I didn't get to today. Apologies for wasting all of our time with Quindarius, who will get my revenge. However, Santa in Portland just sent this out. I want to read this. He says, "Folks, I bring tidings of great joy and good cheer to all Titans fans. Be patient. I too am out on Levis and a few others, but I'm not yet out on Callahan or Rand. Give them one more year to fix the foundational issues. Hold the QB position together with baling wire and chewing gum and see what happens. It's all going to work out fine. Merry Christmas." Thank you, Santa in Portland. What a dose of positivity.
Thank you, Santa. We appreciate that. It's your time of year to shine.
Not sure I agree, but thank you for your message.
I mean,
it's different than most of them.
It is. I mean, look, it's when you turn the ball over 6 times, 4 of them coming from your quarterback, and you lose by double digits again. I mean, you kind of knew today was going to be like that. Laverne on YouTube says, "I'd tank another year if I knew you could get Arch Manning." This is from Laverne on YouTube. I mean, that's the thing. What's the best path to quarterback? If we are in pretty much agreement that it's not Levis, how do you find the quarterback? Because that's still the most important question that faces the organization. Beyond who the general manager is, beyond who the head coach is, all those things are important. But the most important part of this organization moving forward is, how do you find an answer at quarterback? I mean, that's until they get that figured out, Joe, it doesn't really matter who the coach and general manager is.
Right. I love the Arch stuff too. So Arch Manning isn't a starter.
Yeah.
He's fast. He's a backup to Quinn Ewers, who's okay. And the NFL doesn't really have a lot of interest in him. I know Texas fans want him to play, but because his last name is Manning and we know he can run well, you're sure he's going to be the number 1 pick and a worthwhile number 1 pick in 2026 that you got to wait for, right?
But by the way, he also kind of seems like the guy that's probably staying at college the next 2 years anyway.
That could be.
He's taking kind of the unconventional route here, and kind of feels like that may be what happens there too. So there's no guarantee he's coming out next year. Look, I think Arch Manning's going to be good. I would like to see him start a full season of college football before I come to some, grand takeaway of what his NFL future is going to be.
Right. But that's the thing. It's always, and I get it. I do. I mean, look, going into the year, we were joking about Arch and Nico, right? Yeah. And now you think, is Nico going to be, as from what we've seen of him this year, in a year from now, the NFL's like, oh my God, he's at the top of the draft?
I mean, maybe, but
maybe possible.
I don't know if I'd guess that today.
Right. It's hard. Quarterback is hard, but it's so much harder when you have crap around the quarterback. Ryan Tannehill comes in here and it's like, he was fine. I mean, he was pretty good with Miami, better than some people realize, but all of a sudden comes in here, gets blocking, Hall of Fame running back, A.J. Brown, Vrabel defense, and holy crap, look how good that guy is.
Well, and that's the other problem if you're drafting a quarterback. If you draft a quarterback, that's another spot somewhere else that you're not drafting to address the holes in your lineup this offseason. And then if you don't do that, if you say, well, we'll fix the other positions and then get the quarterback later, I mean, right now your option is bringing Will Levis back and or diving into the free agent pool of what is not a good free agent class right now, with the exception of Darnold. And again, I'll believe Darnold actually becomes available in free agency once I see it, because I think Minnesota would be nuts to not bring him back.
Yeah, agree. At least tag. At least do that. I guess they could trade then. But yeah, I would agree with you. They're too good to let him go. If someone says the Mannings have already. Wait, who?
Rodgers. Look good
Oh
yesterday.
yeah. He's got a home. He can come right and pull right in the garage. It's all ready to go. So apparently the Mannings have already said Archer's not coming. I missed that if they did, but that's probably. I mean, I believe it.
I mean, he's not. He hadn't transferred anywhere. He hadn't started. I mean, but he's going to next year. Like, he kind of seems like he may just be there 4 years, and then we'll see where it goes. But again, I'd like to see him start an entire season in college football, and then we can make a determination on Archer Manning after that. Good show today. Appreciate everybody's participation. We'll have a lot more to discuss on the Titans and the Will Levis front this week. Interested to see Brian Callahan's press conference later today. Jason Big Joe coming up next. You're listening to 102.5, 106.3 The Game.